Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Matt Lloyd, Senior Manager for Global Alliances here at Veeam, and I'm joined by Clemens Zerbe, SAP Solutions Architect, Global Alliance Architecture, also here at Veeam. Today, we're going to talk to you today about Veeam's capabilities around Oracle Database and SAP HANA, and we're going to discuss how to easily back up and restore your data. Before we begin, I should inform you that when you joined, you were muted, but you do have access to a question and answer box with regards to the application. So please feel free, as you have questions, to send questions along. We will do our best to answer them either during the presentation or at the end. This presentation will also be recorded. We've received a couple of questions and inquiries on the chat features, as well as in the question box related to that. So I did want to inform you that this webinar will be recorded. But since you're here, I highly encourage you to join us as we discuss this topic. But before we do, I wanted to bring to your attention something that caught mine last week. I was reading an article from CNN Business, and it was talking about how ransomware and other malware activities were causing havoc with businesses. And it was very interesting to me that they started to quantify this. And as we all know, that's difficult to report because not everybody is under obligation to actually report an incident. But over the last 10 months, over 140 local government, police, and hospitals in the United States have been held hostage by ransomware attacks or malware attacks. That's up 65% year over year, an average of 3 per week. And while it's become a lucrative business because data is becoming more valuable, and hence holding it hostage or ransom has only increased, it is also an effort that is difficult to obtain the perpetrator. It's difficult to punish because some of these actors are in different countries or different laws don't apply. So it is a challenge. And as we talk about data management here at Veeam, one of the things that we recognize is it's not just your traditional data that requires an investment in technologies to allow you not only to back it up, but to recover it effectively. But that mission critical data, like, for example, that may reside in an Oracle database or in an SAP HANA infrastructure, is extremely important to you. And as a result, we wanted to take a few moments today to talk to you about it. So as we move to the next slide, as we talk about Veeam to a degree, some of you may be familiar with Veeam, some of you may not be. And I encourage you, as you look at the slide, there's a lot here. And we don't want to bog you down in a lot of marketing conversation because you came here to learn about our SAP and Oracle capabilities. But what I can tell you is there are a couple of things I wish to highlight on this, 3 specifically. The first of which is Veeam is headquartered in Bar, Switzerland. Many people don't know that Veeam is an international organization. So our worldwide headquarters is located in Europe, and we're proud to be a worldwide company. As a result of that, we have over 355,000 customers using Veeam today, a large number. For comparison purposes, VMware has about 600,000 customers. So Veeam customers have continued to grow, and as you can see there from the slide, we've achieved 12 consecutive years of growth. So if you're a customer today and you're learning about this feature, thank you for being a customer. If you're new to Veeam and you're just learning, welcome to learning more about Veeam and what we can provide. And last but not least, I would be amiss if I didn't discuss our Net Promoter Score. And I saw an article, again, I try to be well read because I have the chance to do these relatively frequently. But when we talk about Net Promoter Score, it's become a popular thing for companies to do to try to quantify them against their competition. And the reality of it is, what does it mean? And I will share with you that it does go negative. It is a score that can be negative. There are some companies on the service provider side who do achieve negative scores. I'm sure several of you can probably guess who those might be. But for Veeam, we're pretty proud of the fact that we have a Net Promoter Score of 75, which is 3.5 times the industry average for where we are. And you can also see where other industry folks reside who have gone out and obtained their Net Promoter Score from their customer base. So this is not just an independent interview or an audit of your company. This is what our customers are saying about Veeam, and we're proud to have a score of 75. So for those of you who are looking at it from an academic perspective, that's not just a solid C grade. That is certainly a great score, and we appreciate any of those of you out there who participated in that survey. But let's not just talk about Veeam. Let's talk about the threats that you're facing. So as you move to the next slide, right, we want to discuss something more compelling. And that really revolves around the threats that you're facing today. The sheer amount of data and its growth is a challenge. As a matter of fact, it's not just a challenge; it's a massive challenge. But the size of the digital universe, we know, we've seen those EMC reports that it's doubling every 2 years, and that means in a decade, essentially, that's a 50-fold growth of data, right? Just to quantify that in terms, and that it's being aided, or it's continuing to grow at an increasing rate due to human and machine-generated data. Those data sets are actually growing at 10 times faster than traditional business data. And that's highly impactful when you're talking about a database that might be pertinent in storing that information, or from an analytics standpoint, like SAP HANA. So not only is there much more data, but it's also changing at rapid and unpredictable rates. And that's a challenge as well, right? Each source of data has its own unique change rate. Traditional servers, mobile devices, telemetry generated devices like automobiles, airplanes, this data needs to be captured, and in some cases stored for a fair amount of time. As data grows, the cost of managing it changes, and that's not just the storage, right? There are other costs around leveraging that data. For example, you can look at it in the reverse and say that there could be a lost opportunity in not having data when and where you need it, right? That can lead to a bad insight. That can lead to flawed analysis. That can lead you to make an incorrect business decision, or you would make a different business decision had you had more or different data. That's a challenge as well. And we're talking about SAP HANA. That's very pertinent. And of course, there's also the rising cost of data misuse, right? Loss, theft. From this lost business perspective, you also have your brand damage from headlines. I just shared with you, in that article from CNN, if those of you are trying to go out and find that, I did highlight one particular member of the healthcare community in Alabama in that article as one of the more recent attacks and some of the challenges that they faced. But obviously, that's detrimental to brand as well. Maybe not so important from a government perspective, or less important from a government perspective, but in any perspective, right? A perceived loss of value from that organization or from that business is a challenge, and pulling those customers back is a high mountain to climb. And a lot of folks believe when they put their data in the cloud that they no longer have responsibility for that data. And in many instances, when we're talking with customers about what VMware is talking about, what Microsoft is talking about, this multi-cloud world that we are embarking upon, folks don't know that they are still responsible for their data. So that's something, as we work with our customers and educate them, cloud is a huge driver behind data management. And for Veeam, we provide different capabilities to do this, but we'll talk more about that as we go. The growth of data is a challenge, right? And we can also talk about things like cost and complexity, right? That's a challenge as well. You see in some of the data here, 73% of organizations are unable to deliver uninterrupted access to apps and data from our surveys, right? Compliance is a challenge, security is a challenge. All of these elements drive greater conversation around data. So why are we talking about this, right? As we move to the next slide, the whole why Veeam probably comes to mind, right? What does Veeam help provide in order to, as we talk about some of these challenges, right? How does Veeam mitigate some of those? And at Veeam, we deliver solutions that provide simplicity, right? From a single platform, we bring together your data in one place. So you can put it to work. You can, essentially, this is more than just backup, right? You can make it work together across your organization. So it's not just about making sure that it's backed up. It's about making it work for the organization, and that's visibility. That's Q&A, test and development purposes, and recovery capabilities. Flexibility. That's one that it's always interesting to talk about. We help you back up manage your data from anywhere, right? Anywhere inside your IT ecosystem. So whether that's on-prem or in the cloud, Veeam has capabilities to help you. We'll talk more about that in a slide or two. And certainly, beyond just business continuity, you can use your data to accelerate your business and drive innovation. So it's not just having to have that data and archive that data for a regulatory purpose, or maybe just to hang on to that data for in some cases when we have this conversation with customers, they're doing it for no reason at all. That's a challenge. And the reliability, right? We want to make sure as we talk about data management, then we can recover that data leveraging the budget that you have. And this is important, especially as you talk about cloud, because the last thing you want to be doing is investing in infrastructure that you have no intention of using. And as we move forward, right, just to talk about some of these aspects, clearly one-on-one, with simplicity, we talked a little bit about this, right? The ability to granularly, easy for me to say, recover, leverage analytics, and a scalable architecture. Veeam Backup Replication allows you to do this by providing a streamlined disaster recovery capabilities and a simple, secure offsite backup capabilities, right? Gives you the ability to achieve low recovery point objectives. Case in point, 83% of Veeam customers are more confident in their backup than with previous solutions. So as we surveyed our customers, we have found that by adopting Veeam in their environments, they're more confident in their ability to restore. And part of that is around the simplicity. Not having to go through extensive training, being able to leverage quick and efficient tools, helps organizations focus on the projects to move their business forward as opposed to on the backup. Flexibility as we move forward, right? One of the things that we talked about was flexibility, and helping you manage your data from anywhere we feel is important, because if there's anything we've learned today, this not just cloud, but whether data is at the edge, whether data is at the core, and I know I'm bringing in a little bit of a networking aspect to this discussion, but data resides in a variety of different points now. We're working with a transportation provider who was talking about maintaining data at the edge. Not only do they need to maintain it for regulatory and compliance purposes, but they also have reservation needs at the local level that they need to make sure they store data at those locations. You're going to see transportation potentially as a theme here, because we have a great quote from a person in the transportation industry about our capabilities with SAP. So stay tuned on that one. But we certainly want to, as we look forward, right, that flexibility helps drive that intelligent data management across thousands of customers, as we mentioned off the top. And reliability. So it's not just about flexibility. As we move to the next slide, it's about reliability. And from a Veeam perspective, backup and data management, our solutions evolve with you. So whether that's how the components will fit as your organization grows, or potentially changing storage options, leveraging archive solutions, leveraging the cloud, we grow with your budget and we grow with your business to harness the power of your data and support as you embark on this journey for digital transformation. We like to use the phrase, it just works, and as a matter of fact, it was our tagline a few years back, but this helps you achieve that immediate ROI that you're looking for in your business. And we all know, data is portable, and we want the recovery to be as instantaneous as possible when we've lost access to that data. Veeam provides you tools and recovery capabilities to do that. But I've talked a little about the platform. As we move into the next slide, I'll piece it together. So we bring that single platform together, and you can see there, right, we focused on the virtual space. We have capabilities in the physical space. We have your software as a service capabilities for those of you who have embarked upon Office 365 and OneDrive now. If you haven't seen that from Veeam, that's an interesting capability. And then cloud as well, right? And you can see how we bring this all together. But our focus hasn't changed over the course of our company history. Backup is still the core of what we do, and that visibility across physical, virtual, cloud, and software as a service applications, we know is important to you. You want to be able to understand where your data lies, and the orchestration behind that is also important as well. The Veeam Availability Platform, is a solution to help you manage your data from policy-based behavior, make it smarter, help it to be self-governing, and ensure that it's available across any application or across any cloud infrastructure. But the core to that is Veeam Backup Replication, right? That's essentially our core platform that provides the centralized management, backup for workloads. It has the core capabilities for backup and recovery. But if we combine that with capabilities like Veeam Data Labs, which we'll talk a little bit more about as we walk through, because it's an important recovery capability, especially in regards to SAP HANA and Oracle database. But the ability to create a production environment from your backup data and do verification testing, test upgrades and patches prior to production deployment, security testing, compliance enforcement. Veeam Data Labs provides these capabilities. And then from a storage perspective, especially from an on-prem perspective, our universal APIs enable integration at the highest level possible. And we do have integration across a variety of our storage partners, including HPE, NetApp, Cisco, Pure, IBM, Dell EMC, and Huawei. For those of you who may have missed it, if you're a Compelling customer, or what now Dell EMC refers to as Storage Center, we just launched a plugin 3 or 4 weeks ago for those of you. So if you haven't had the chance to download that yet, I encourage you. We have orchestration, monitoring, analytics. We bring that all together through our strategic alliance partners as well to help you leverage the investments that you've made with an agnostic approach to let you choose what technologies fit your business. So as we move forward, one of the things that I want to make sure I highlight is, and I mentioned I would get to the quote, and there it is, regarding our innovation history, and then we'll get into showing a little bit more about the plugins themselves. We've evolved over the course of time with relationship to these two technologies. And, first it was something as simple as advanced VSS integration and recovery wizards, right? But as we move forward, we've added an Explorer for Oracle database. And if you're unfamiliar with Veeam Explorers, we'll talk a little bit about those during the presentation. For those of you out there who didn't know, one of our 5 Explorers, Oracle database is one of them. The other 4 revolve around Microsoft applications. We also joined the SAP Global Technology Partner Program in 2017. And then in 2018, we were able to achieve a certification for SAP HANA backint. We also became a member of the Oracle Backup Solution Program, what they refer to as BSP. So as we move forward in releasing in 2019 with Backup and Replication 9.5 Update 4, these plugins, we've brought different capabilities, these different capabilities to light. But we've been evolving over time, and the focus hasn't changed. But let's talk about those. So we have those plugins, and as we move into the next slide, right, just want to highlight briefly that these plugins are available, offering integrated support for Oracle Recovery Manager now and SAP HANA, and that customers were speaking with us about wanting to have access to these abilities. There are thousands of customers leveraging this technology. It made sense for Veeam to do this. And many customers were leveraging native Oracle and SAP backup tools separately from Veeam. And now those backups can leverage Veeam repositories. So the investments you've made in Veeam, if you're a Veeam customer today, or if you're interested in making an investment in Veeam, this just brings all that data management and those capabilities into one place. So this is where I want to make sure to bring in Clemens Zerbe. You remember I introduced at the beginning of the presentation. Clemens is going to talk to us a little bit and even show us a little bit about how these capabilities work. Clemens?
Yeah, thank you, Matt. So yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are and where you're listening to us. I just want to go a little bit more into the details and finally want to show you how easy it is finally to make use of our plugin. So let's start with Oracle. Oracle, we have a long history, to be honest, with Oracle, though there are 2 ways of finally backing up Oracle in Veeam. So we started at least 3 or 4 years ago with the classical user-integrated Oracle backups, where we just go into into SQL Plus and tell the database begin database backup and database backup, and in between we take an image. But we have a lot of customers which have databases which are bigger, where our customers ask us, can you support us with Armen over time? And one of the things we have done in the last year was creating an Armen plugin. And Armen is a recovery manager for Oracle, where you can do all the sophisticated things inside Oracle backup and restore. So the idea is we are connecting through the Armen manager, and with this there's something called SPT driver or tape device driver for Oracle Armen. This is what we are finally used from a technology point of view. And with this, we are finally transferring data directly from Oracle Armen without going into any local disk. So we're just taking the data out of a pipe, putting these data into our agents. And finally, this agent or the Veeam plugin for Oracle Armen will then transfer this data into our Veeam repositories. So that's finally how it's works. And guess what? The exact same technology works also for SAP HANA, with the difference that there we are talking about SAP HANA backend instead of Armen. But the idea, having a plugin which connects to the database, who takes the data out of the database, and most of the stuff will be handled by the database itself, and then the data will be then directly taken into our repositories. So what do we do, especially with Armen? Armen is typically very script-based. So for those customers, and I mentioned this before, who do not want to use any of these Armen scripts, we still have the existing Oracle image backup available, so which is called Oracle user-based backup. So this is still part of our guest processing, and you can decide which way is the right one to go. And it really depends, from my point of view, what type of technology you are using. If you are familiar with Armen, we always recommend using Armen. If you just have 1 or 2 or 3 smaller Oracle database, you are totally fine with the existing classical user-based Oracle backup. So just going a little bit further, how does Armen work? So I talked about this. There's the SBT plugin, which finally means we emulate a tape interface into Armen, which allows us finally taking the data. And the easiest way of showing this is maybe just give you a short demo how it works and how easy it will be configured, because it finally explains much more than one of these 5 or 6 wonderful slides. So last one, before we go into demonstration, I just want to have this fully built up. So finally, with Armens, you can also set Armen channels. For those who have already worked with Armen channels, depending on your version of Oracle, so with the standard version, you can do up to 4. If you have an enterprise edition of Oracle, then you can up to 256. So it really depends, and it helps you finally set up more speed. That's all one of the hints I have for you finally. If you building up any Armen or SAP HANA backend environments, just take care of a proper sizing. We had a lot of customers who start this, which is great. On the other hand, which overrun their actual repositories by putting just too much workload on these, because, and you will see this also in a second, you can quite easily get several hundred megabytes per second from a single database. So let's quickly really run into a demo, and this is always what I like and what everybody should see. So let me click a little bit here in this environment. So I have here a small test environment. Let me see if I got the size a little bit better if I click here. Okay, yeah, this one is great. So just need to make this a little bit smaller, then you see much more. I can close this one off. So let's start here. So what do you see on the side of VBR? For those who are VBR or Veeam Backup Application Administrators, this finally, how does it look inside VBR? So you see like here an Oracle backup job, and you see there's a job called hostname of the system, Oracle backup, going into this repository, and it's Oracle Armen backup. So finally, it tells you more or less which files are processed by Oracle. And this is finally how it works. And you see quite easily, I promised this before, this is just a small test environment, but you quite easily get 500 something megabyte per second without a lot of tuning. If you tune this environment properly, yeah, you will even get more. But let's go back to my server where I just have 1 or 2 systems, and let's start. This one is the HANA system. Let's quickly jump to the Oracle system. And most of the stuff is command line as I'm using a Linux system. Exactly the same for Windows. So if you do anything, then you just do the installation of an MSI file for Windows, or for the Linux world, you do an rpm-ivh and then our plugin. And if you're doing this, what happened in this case, you will then directly have an installation under opt Veeam plugin for Oracle Armen. If you just jump into this folder, do an LL, you see there are some additional files. So I talked about this. There's the Veeam agent, which is automatically installed and will directly transfer your data. There's something called Veeam config XML, which finally takes care of the configuration or part of the configuration. We'll talk about this in a second. And there's the Armen plugin manager, which I also showed in the picture before, which finally takes the data together with the config SO libraries and finally push these data into our repositories. But after you have just installed the plugin, the next step is you just run, and also the installation is telling you finally, please do this for us. Where we are, sorry, /r Oracle Armen config tool --, or help gives you some configuration items, and the easiest one is --w. So what it does finally ask you, where is your backup server, so VBR server. Give it an IP address or a full qualified name like in my environment, enter a communication port, enter a username and a password. I just take my existing one, and if the password is all right, you can connect to the system. You see I have there a scale out backup repository, which is also activated. And there's also some additional configuration where you can say Oracle has the possibility to save data or finally stream data into 4 Veeam repositories at the same time. So you can even build some real extra reliability on this. So have your data at up to 4 repositories in one. Next thing is, what is the default number of data streams if you don't want to configure this as part of your Armin scripts? So in my case, it's 8. And the next one is very important, especially if you're an Oracle administrator. It gives you 3 options. So finally, it tells you, okay, I found an Oracle instance, which is an Oracle 12.2. The Oracle SID is OAP, whatever this means, and he wants to configure Oracle Armin settings, which is default device type 2 SPD tape, and channel device type 2 SPD tape, and some parameter settings, so which library to use. And there's also a format string, which finally formats our files, so which finally gives us meaningful file names into our repositories. And there you have also additional configure items, which is finally all done in Armin. So these are Armin settings. And then you have additionally for all your Armin scripts, the allocate channel definition. So, and now you have finally 3 options. So first one, which I do not recommend for most customers, is apply configuration to the Oracle environment. What most customers like to do is number 2, because it finally exports this configuration into a file, and you can copy these settings and configure your system like you want. A lot of Oracle administrators don't like the idea of having done something automatically, though they want to do this on their own. So that's option number 2. Option number 3 is also cancel and do without anything, or cancel and do no saving, which finally means we also have to configure it at all. But my recommendation number 2, and with this, he asks you, there's a path to finally where this config file should be. I just enter. Do you want to replace it? In my case, no. And there's a Veeam config XML, also no, where we do all the configurations. And from there, I do not want to replace it. I just put it out here. And from there, you can just jump to the export folder and look into this folder, and you have your Armin config and Veeam config. And if I just do a small cat on this, you see it's exactly the same configuration like you saw before. So this is, I guess, quite easy. So configuration is typically taking, if you are not talking so much like I am doing, about 5 minutes. So you install the RPM, you need to at least run the agent at once. And then from there, you directly start Armin. And just let me go back. That's the easiest one, like always. If you just connect to Armin target, and then if you just do a backup as backup set database, which is the easiest way of doing backups, and for all those of you who are really deep dive in Oracle, there are a lot more things to do. But if I just kick off this, guess what will happen? He will open several tape devices and will stream all this configuration back into our repositories. So if I click back to my VBR environment and just close this window, you see there's another Oracle job running, and it takes some seconds. And during the some seconds, you see they are coming in more file names, so which are finally the 8 streams I discussed before. And from there, it will be stored in our repositories. Just a quick hint for those who have not seen this so far. If you just go into the repositories, and I have 2 of these repositories on my system here. If I just jump there, and there's something /Oracle1, there you see the different files, which are the VAB files, and there all these data are finally stored. So you see this is running. And from there, I would let it run. It will take, you see this, 700 megabytes per second. So not much optimized, but you see it's quite fast. And from there, I would say, let it run. It will take another, 30 seconds or a minute. And then we will have a look after I explained how exactly the same works for any SAP environment. So going back, having a mentally jumped into SAP HANA, so going away from Oracle, jumping into SAP HANA. The technology is more or less the same, as long as we not talk about the database, but as long as we talk about the integration. Though, you have seen this so far. SAP is one of the largest providers for enterprise application software, and SAP is finally migrating a lot of customers to their new S4 platform, which is their new market-leading intelligent ERP solution. And either you are a new customer to SAP and have a greenfield installation, or you're an existing customer with an existing ECC environment where you migrate your environment, you have to be on S4 by 2025. So what we see right now is a lot of customers going the HANA route and going together with SAP the HANA business. And this also leads to a lot of questions from our customers in the last years: when do we support HANA? And guess what? With the Veeam plugin for SAP HANA, that's the official certified way using SAP HANA backend, finally backing up and restoring SAP HANA databases. So SAP is going a different route a little bit. So we as Veeam need to do a SAP backend certification, which we have done last year in November. And with this, we are officially listed as one of the possible or one of the certified applications. And the good thing is this brings also some support things together. So if you are an SAP customer and you even open a call with an SAP for SAP HANA backend, there's also a way forward any questions to us. Good thing right now, there were 0 calls between us and SAP, because thanks to the certification, this is working greatly, and we did not see a lot of customer interventions on this, because finally, it just works. So back to the old Veeam marketing slide. Let's go forward one little bit. So what I mentioned before, it's a plugin. You install this. This is HANA is only running on Linux, so you only have an RPM, and it opens finally also a pipeline, gives us data, and we finally transfer this data into our repositories. So the way of integration, as it's also a plugin, is exactly the same like for Oracle. Besides, the technology works a little bit different. If we just go one deeper, finally, so from the SAP HANA database, we will start a SAP HANA backend session. This session will then tell the Veeam plugin finally, please open the session, and one of the next steps we need to do, and number 2 is asking the Veeam backup application server, do I have the right? Can you give me the repository? Is all my transferring the data authenticated and authorized? So these kind of things. And if my Veeam backup application server says, yes, you have the right account and you're allowed to do any backups, then the next step he will tell the Veeam agent on the HANA system and the Veeam agent, as a software component, on the backup repository server. You should be ready for creating a stream between you both, and then transferring all the data either from the Veeam agent, if we talk about a backup from the SAP HANA server, to the HANA back or to the backup repository, or the way back if you're doing a restore. The good thing, this is working or using standard Veeam technology. So communication to the server is classical 10,006 port, plus the Veeam agents are talking also to standard 2,500 plus ports, depending on how many streams you are enabling on this. So 1 port per stream. I will not read through this, but it's just for you to finally also see what we are supporting. This is just number of versions. So from Oracle, it's everything, by the way, including Oracle 19 in the meantime. So that's also supported. All operating systems which are Oracle relevant. So Windows 2016 to even Windows 2019 is also missing here. But finally, it's RHEL, CentOS, Oracle OS, all these less versions. The same for HANA. HANA is only running on / or RHEL, or only official support on / or RHEL for SAP, so you can use any version which are out there, and we're supporting HANA 1.0, 2.0. This is one of my recommendations for best practices. So before we do a demo on HANA, which we will do in a second, I just want to talk about when to use what. So finally, if we talk about backend for SAP HANA, and by the way, this is totally true for the ARM and for Oracle, this is typically done by either SAP Basis admin, DBAs, however they are named and called. They can do any point-in-time restores because it's something which is finally created and used out of their database application. On the other hand, which is finally not part typically of Armen and not part of SAP HANA backend, are any operating system items, any configuration files which might be there. So you need additionally to the classical backend and Armen an additional level of backup. What do I mean with an additional level of backup? Use our classical Veeam image level backup, which could be and should be also application aware, which finally means this is something which you should use and can use for any disaster recovery purposes. So finally, often these things are used by the infrastructure team. So the infrastructure team is taking care of any operating system, configuration item, these kind of things. And the classical DBAs, sub-basis admins are taking care of the application itself. What I mentioned also before, be careful, you have just seen it in my environment with Oracle. You can quite easily with one database send up to several hundred megabytes per second. So in my instance was 600-700 megabytes per second. So please do a proper sizing for repositories, because this can be a huge challenge if you just overrun your repositories. Also, let me jump back, going into the HANA environment and to see what happened. So this one is ready, say just OK here, and just go back and have exactly the same what I've done before on the, let me find, where's the end of the, there. So going back. So exactly the same thing here. If I just clear the screen, I'm just in the Veeam plugin for SAP HANA. So it's exactly the same structure. And guess what? If I look into the system, there's something called SAP backend config tool instead of Oracle config tool. There's a SAP backend manager and the HDB backend. So it looks exactly the same. Besides, one is for HANA, one is for Armen. And I can do exactly the same trick. Looks a little bit different because the tool is different, but anyway, if I do a -W, I just put in the either host name, full qualified IP address, or simple host name, just enter the backup number, username, password. It asked me for the repository, and in the end it tells me there's something called SID, so all the SAP administrators on your side already know what I'm talking about. So the SAP ID H20, so my instance is called H20, has been properly configured, which finally means from there I just go into one of the administrative tools, and one of these administrative tools for HANA is SAP HANA Studio. You can also use HANA Cockpit, that's all fine. And from there, if you just do a right click here, go to Backup Recovery and say Open Backup Console, which is what I have here opened. Yeah, you just go for Overview, and under Configuration, you will find the most important thing. You directly see the backend agent with Veeam plugin for SAP HANA HDB backend is already activated and ready to use. One of the important things, if you configure this your first time, we don't use any parameter files because most of our configuration is part of the XML file or part of the VBR itself, so we don't use them, so leave them empty, and change the log backup settings. So typically it's default is file, so change this to backend and choose the whatever needed backup interval. So I put this 2 hours because I do not want to have in my test and demo environment so many log files, but from an SAP point of view, 50 minutes is the default, and whatever fits in your environment, put this there. The good thing, and this works different than Oracle, you need to do archive log backups on your own, though you might want to run this every 50 minutes, something like this. HANA is working differently. So what HANA finally does is either you reach the time limit, then it will create a log file and copy this via backend into our repository. Or if a log file is full, it will automatically start a backend session and will transfer this log file to our repository again. And the good thing is it will also clear up automatically all the local log files. So if you just look from there into the backup catalog, you see I've run some of the runs today, so October 14th, 15th, and we will do one other run in a second. Exactly the same thing, though it looks different. I have a graphical interface. You can do exactly the same also from command line with HTTP SQL. I can just do a begin database backups, that's all fine. But from there, you just do backup system database or tenant database, so both is supported. Say you want to use backend, you can use this backup prefix, whatever you like. Click next. Okay, finish. And if everything works well and great, you see directly here, this also changed. So my /15 HANA 04 system directly started a session from the system DB and finally transferred data from the HANA system via backend into this. Just for those who are looking around and say, oh, this might be a little bit slower than the Oracle backup, guess what? This is a totally empty database. So like the Oracle database, there were about 60 or 70 gigabyte in it. This one is really empty, plain installed. So that's the reason why the connection start and end will take some time and you don't see any processing rate. If you have database, and we see this in a lot of customers where you are bigger than 128 gigabyte, where you can use multiple streams, then you will reach the same amount of data rate, so 600, 900, even over a gig. If you have more than a gig, 10 gigabit connection to our repositories are quite easy to achieve. So that's also, again, the warning, please do a proper sizing on the repositories. So you see this running, it's transferring data, and this was already run at just 1.8 gigabyte. And you see we do some compression in between. So the same idea. And if I go back here, I also see backup of the database is finished. Exactly the same if I want to do a tenant backup. Backup tenant looks exactly the same, has a different name, next. Just say backend, next, finish. And working exactly the same. You can even run these backups, so the backup for system database and for all your tenants in parallel if you want. Okay, anything else? So we talk a little bit about backup, and I showed you a small example in Oracle and I showed you a small example in HANA. I just want to show how easy it is also to recovery. Just go for, let me see if the backup run takes a second. It needs to run first. Just let it run the second, and if this is finished, we can start afterwards directly with a restore. But the idea is exactly the same. You do all the restores finally from the integration inside the database. So for Armin, you typically go and do most of the restores running an Armin script for what you need. Exactly the same for the HANA database. So just let this run. This should be finished in a second. Wonderful. Thank you very much. So we go there, backup, restore, do a recover tenant database in my case. I want to have this one next. Then I have the option most recent state, which finally means my last or one of the last full backups plus incrementals plus differentials plus logs. If I know 2 hours ago, a wonderful colleague of mine had deleted a table and did a stupid drop table, then I can go back into this time and maybe go into the time just a second before, or I can just point it to a specific full or incremental backup. So in my case, recover the complete database. Then I can say search the backup catalog in backend only, which is in VBR. And by the way, I can also activate system copies, which is also SAP specific. So I create a copy from productive to non-productive system right here. The only one additional thing I have to do, I just enable it, say my source system is prod at whatever prod. So I need to name it like tenant at SID. And from there, I can directly enable only one hind, and I document this properly in one of my blogs. But if you just look into this configuration tool, -H, There's also the possibility to set --set restore server. So if I just redo this with set restore server, I have also the option to finally see where I have done other HANA backups before, and as long as I have all rights, it's also one of the things you need to look for and look out. Then you can restore from all the other systems, and as long as the SID and the tenant name is all right, you can then do a system copy from one of my HANA 125 systems. So this is also very straightforward. So just let me jump back to the Studio, HANA Studio. There we are. Search for next. Oh, by the way, before doing a database restore, you need to stop the database. So it will shut down the tenant. And from there, it will finally look into the system itself, will find all the backups I have done the last days. And from there, I have the possibility to finally do a restore. So this takes typically a minute or two, and also filling up this because it needs to look into the catalog, which is within our repository. So this takes some seconds. But in the meantime, we can do some or talk about some additional slides. So the last 3 slides from my side before I turn it over to Matt again, just some things where Veeam can help you with a lot of additional stuff. So instant VM recovery. For those who have worked long time with Veeam are typically aware of this. For those who have not worked with Veeam, it's a possibility to finally restore a VM instantly. Sounds wonderful. The idea is we create on our systems, depending on what technology we are using, either with storage snapshots or even our repositories, we are creating finally backup copies of your data. But instead of restoring all your data in the first place, we're just mounting these data internally and present this back as a VM. What does it mean? So let's imagine it's an Oracle database and you just lost your 5 terabyte Oracle productive data warehouse, whatever database. And behind you or in front of you, you can choose whatever you like more, is one of your managers and asking, when is this database back? When do I get this back? When do I get this back? And in this case, you just do a right click on the last backup, say instant recovery. And from there, it takes about 90 seconds typically, where we finally mount out of our data protection the Oracle VM itself, restart the Oracle database on the same hypervisor, so for VMware on ESXi, for Hyper-V on a Hyper-V server. And from there, it starts up and you are online again without transferring any of your 5 terabytes. So we do this with our own NFS technology as part of the repository servers and just mount this via NFS. The funny part is sometimes these NFS shares are much faster than the original storage system, but this is just a side story. So once again, system will be back in 90 seconds, and from there you can log on and do whatever you want. And from there, as it's an NFS mount point, you can do a normal storage migration within either Hyper-V or in VMware, and you just do storage motion or storage vMotion and just move it back online. So that's one option. That's the easiest one. For SQL and Oracle, this works quite well. For HANA, you have to look the instance itself, and the database itself will also be back in 90 seconds. What we cannot really accelerate is how long HANA takes until the data is in memory. So still, HANA needs its startup time. And if you have a terabyte or a 2 terabyte database, it takes 5, 6, 8 minutes until you can do any transactions. Just keep this in mind. If you put this a little bit further, so first idea, I do a very fast recovery. That's great. But we can use this to do some other stuff. So Sure Backup uses exactly the same kind of technology. So we have in our backup storage data, and we can create something called virtual lab. So the idea is, especially for SAP environments, I can restore maybe Active Directory, including DNS, having an SAP HANA system or an Oracle system for SAP or whatever it finally is in your environment, having the CI or ASCS, how it's named in the meantime, having an application server, and this all is in a protected and fenced virtual lab. And all of these came together, maybe first the Active Directory controller with DNS, then the database, and then the application server. So the system will start. And with an injection of a script, you can then log on to the system and see if you want to have a report of, let's say, I want to have all orders from last night or which were created yesterday or whatever is a valid sign that the system is fully there. Then you do an SAP login and you get this report. And finally, this report is finally mailed to you. That's what you can do. And this is a very strong tool. Finally, that's what you kindly can do with the virtual lab in SAP environments, because finally you can guarantee that all the backups you have done all the nights are really valid and you are able to restore. If you just take this one more further, if you do not want to delete, and finally Sure Backup deletes after completion the environment, some customers also use this something called on-demand sandbox, which is finally the idea. Instead of finally deleting the Sure Backup, you just let the Sure Backup where and you can do additional things, especially in Oracle and SAP environments. Do something like an SAP kernel update in your productive copy of your productive environment. The challenge you always have is, for sure, you have a dev QA productive environment. That's all nice, and you can transport your patches from A to B to C. That's all fine. But do you really know if your QA environment is 100% copy of your productive system, including the same operating system patch level, including the same resources, including the same SAP kernel, the same patches you have played with? So you can, with on-demand sandbox, having an environment which is up and running, and you can even in normal working hours test any patches, whatever things you want to test in a virtual environment which is fully fenced off from your normal environment and can play around, do update testing, do whatever you want. And from there, if you don't need it, you can either throw it away, or if this is something where you see, I need this again for something, either shut it down or even make it productive. So some ideas what you can do with all the advanced functionalities from Veeam. And from there, I would give it back to Matt.
Excellent, Clemens. Thank you. It was two great demos. I certainly appreciate having the opportunity to see it. And for those of you who have joined us, these are live. So we we didn't put Clemens in a position where it was 100% success imminent. He certainly showed you live what can happen with Veeam and leveraging these capabilities. But I would be amiss if I didn't leave us with a couple of things. And there are 2 or 3 great questions in here that I'd love to address here momentarily. So please hang on. We do intend to address a couple of questions related to SAP and Oracle. But the first and foremost, what do you walk away from this webinar with? And I would encourage you to do these 3 things. First, plan to address the demands, right? I understand the backup and recovery demands of these environments, and certainly Veeam is an option here if you're running SAP HANA or Oracle. If you have questions, don't hesitate to contact Veeam. Contact us, or we are 100% channel. So don't hesitate to contact your reseller of choice, and certainly discuss how these capabilities can help impact the way you back up these types of applications, or learn how Veeam can help you, for that matter. And last but not least, we highly encourage you to incorporate those consistent backup, restore, and security capabilities, both on-premises and in the cloud. For those of you who have joined us at different events over the course of the year, you may even have seen we've done some events related to the VMware community, VMUG specifically, on tagging best practices and other backup best practices that are generic in nature. They aren't focused on Veeam. We know it's difficult. We know maintaining data integrity and maintaining those policies is difficult as data moves around these days. We certainly want to help encourage your best practices and help provide you the opportunity to push those best practices out within your organization so that you can recover when you need to, essentially. And as we move, my last slide, and then I'd love to address those questions. For those of you that know, we are having our second annual Veeam On virtual event. So please join us. It'll be on November 20th. Later this year. So in a couple of weeks here, we highly encourage you to join us if you'd like to register. There's a wonderful attachment or PDF available in the application when you join this webinar. So don't hesitate to go ahead, click on that PDF and register. We encourage you to join us. It's going to be an event with that includes leading experts, partners, and more than 5,000 of your peers who are going to receive exclusive access to sessions and content that will keep you on top of new innovations, tools, techniques, and other elements around disaster recovery and availability that are necessary today. Now, we're going to talk about some predictions for 2020. We'll bring in some industry experts there. We'll also highlight some industry trends and how customers are essentially closing this availability gap, this distance between the services they can deliver and the services they want to deliver around data availability. And last but not least, hear from other Veeam customers. We appreciate you joining us, and we certainly appreciate that you view us as industry experts. But it's sometimes more interesting to hear from your peers in the industry. And during Veeam On Virtual, you have a chance to do that. So with that, Clemens, I know there are a few additional questions that have been accumulating during the course of the webinar, and I want to highlight a couple. One, just because we ended on SAP HANA, and I'll start with this one. So there's a question that was proposed around leveraging the Veeam agent. I'm assuming that's a plugin conversation question, but it could be either way. But we're talking about SAP HANA snapshots, and is it SAP application-based or is it LVM-based?
It depends, and finally it depends on your environment. Though the idea of the SAP HANA snapshot, so typically we install our normal Linux agent, and from there we are taking care of the application. So finally we have on GitHub a script which finally puts the HANA database finally inside the HANA snapshot mode, and after we have taken the backup, we take it out of the snapshot mode. And what we are doing on either Red Hat and SUSE, we are also activating typically change block tracking. So even if you're running a 10 terabyte database, if you are going this route of finally taking care of your HANA database, it might also be that we only take care of all the changes, which might be a percentage or 2 or 5, whatever it is finally in your environment of the complete database, and we are taking care behind the scenes to finally build a new full restorable copy of this. Hope this answers the question.
Excellent. Thanks, Clemens. I appreciate that. And I'm receiving a couple updates here. One other one I want to address, Clemens. We had an individual who was talking about long-term retention around database. They did specify a timeline here, but regarding Oracle database in a long retention policy, like getting into that 7 and 10 year range, any best practices that you recommend in leveraging Veeam?
Yeah, for this, I would recommend search on veeam.com for my blog. So under veeam.com/blog, there are several blogs of mine where I did, and the things I pointed out there for SAP HANA are more or less exactly the same for Oracle Armin. Though I pointed out how to do finally a 7 or 10 year retention. So the challenge we always see with this is, as we are doing a lot of things of disk, you do not finally want to have all this data on disk because it's expensive. So there are some options to either put this to tape or to some other technologies like S3 or any cloud storage, which makes the life a lot more easier.
Excellent. Thank you, Clemens. And then there was one other one that I think deserves to be addressed, and I'll certainly take this one. A question on Veeam licensing levels. And the plugins are available at with our Enterprise Plus version of our perpetual licensing, but many of you will be learning about soon, or you may have attended a Veeam-based webinar already about the licensing changes. Veeam is also offering a universal license, what we're calling our VUL. And if you do migrate to that new license, the plugins are available to be licensed that way as well. So it's just another way you can customize our licensing, whether it's perpetual or a subscription service, to fit your offerings, to fit your environment, and make sure you take advantage of the capabilities that you need. So with that, we've addressed most of the questions here in the chat. Clemens, I'll defer to you. Do you have any other comments before we close?
No, just that I really would like to hear from our customers what is their experience on this. So that's what I always like. Yeah, so please feel free to either answer on my blog or even in our forums to give us feedback, how you like it, how do you use it, what it brings for you. So this would be very helpful.
Excellent. Yeah, no, definitely the forums are a great source of information. For those of you who have visited those in the past, you folks like Clemens and his peers, as well as our product management teams, are regular responders and regular participants in that area. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to provide feedback, as Clemens asked. This webinar was recorded, so if you'd like to listen to us again sometime, we'll make it available for you. We've had some questions related to the presentation as well. We'll make that available in a follow-up email as well. So you will receive an opportunity to not only hear us again, but also to see the material. So with that, I'll close. Again, my name is Matt Lloyd. Thank you for joining us today. And a thank you to Clemens for his technical expertise in the demonstrations, and a person behind the scenes that you haven't heard, Katie, who's been working diligently behind the scenes as well. We thank you for joining us today. Have a great day, and thank you for stopping by. Have a good one.